My journey, what led me to prison, started when I was a child. I think my whole childhood was leading me to prison. My family life was very abusive, emotionally, physical, and sexually abusive.
The journey that led me to prison was, I suppose it starts back in childhood with just, getting in touch with my emotions. As crazy as that sounds, getting in touch with my emotions was using cocaine for me. And that happened in my early 20s. And that's where my value system sort of flipped around, and that's what it was about, cocaine and the money to get it. And that not only led me, but kept me in and out of prison for a long time. A long time.
What led me to prison, I received a second-degree murder charge, and I'm doing a life sentence.
The journey that led me to prison was it involved drug abuse and ended up being a second-degree murder, and I was sentenced to 15 years to life.
When I got a phone call to say they had a spot at the women's prison, it was some doctor was taking some leave and they needed somebody to fill in. I thought, oh, there's no way I could possibly work in a prison. It must be the lowest of the low kind of job. And then the idea kind of intrigued me, and so I thought, well, why not? I could give it a try. So I remember when I first went into the prison, obviously it's quite a culture shock. It was a lot of slammed doors, a lot of concrete. And then in the medical clinic, I met women there who I realized I would never otherwise meet in my regular practice in Vancouver. And I realized that women in prison had desperate health needs and health disparities, a lot of illnesses and diseases, and a lot of unmet healthcare needs. And most of the women I met were very sincerely wanting to get healthy and were unsure how to do it.
Well, number one, because I was mental health when I first got there, I had the emotionally unstable stamp, so I was seeing psychologists all the time. I'm not talking to many of them because I need that certain open highway, and it was just never there. But also I was diagnosed with hepatitis C in prison back in 1990, 92, and nobody knew really much about it, so there was another big too bad for you. I remember the nurse saying that, too bad for you, with the hep C, and sort of more or less a good luck in life kind of.
You know, they ask you all these questions, and after that I avoided healthcare. I avoided it on the outs and I avoided it inside. Even, you know, when I was out on the street, you know, even to get birth control pill, you know, after 3 months they want you to go get a pap test. Well, I just go find another doctor and get another 3 months, and I just kept doing that. I avoided doctors like they were the plague.
As far as preventative cancer treatment, there was absolutely nothing to do with me.
No, when I was inside, there wasn't any, I didn't experience anything to do with cancer. No. Cancer treatment or screening, no, not at all. Not that I remember, no.
The incidence of a lot of chronic diseases and cancer is higher amongst people in prison versus people in the general population. And so we talk about health disparity. So there is a disparity in the health prevalence. And therefore, I think there's even more urgency for people who are in prison or people who have incarceration experience to actually be very aware of what they should be doing in terms of preventative health and also in terms of cancer screening. So you might ask, well, why do people in prison have that health disparity? It's not just because they're sitting in prison, but it's because of all the things in their lives that have led them to this place where they are.
In the early year 2001, I had the tragic news of losing my family, my father and my 2 children in a house fire. After that, life going down the halls and in the prison life, in the prison system was like I was in a trance, more or less. I was in a deep, deep sorrow. I became to be very sick. And I got diagnosed with breast cancer. My experience there was not very good in them detecting it and doing, asking and receiving results. They didn't have very good care there for what I had. So I asked for a transfer back to the Pacific region, where I thought, okay, well, if I'm going to die with what little family I have left.
Yeah, the prison doctor wanted me to come in and do a pap test, and you always knew when the physician was in, and you'd hear your name being called over the speaker to go to healthcare, and you just ignored it. So I avoided ever going to get a pap smear or getting any kind of preventive healthcare inside. To me, the fear of seeing a doctor was overruling, my own healthcare.
Given the test for colon cancer, a colonoscopy, I think it's called, right? Yeah, so like I said, my best friend, that was kind of the door opener. Why don't you find out if you have it, right? Because it came into Carolyn's life and it was way too late to do anything about it.
Nothing was really offered to me. An offer of a pap smear, of which I was not willing to let them do. I was asked about that machine that they want to put your breasts in, and I said, no, I don't want anything to do with that. I think it had been pretty much all my life. I have a fear of sort of invasive things to my body, and even if it was a female doctor, or it wouldn't matter who was around, I just didn't want that to happen to myself, but especially not in a prison either.
For me, the reason why I decided to go get tested was actually I had a lump, but I had the lump for quite a while, and another friend of mine was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer. And she knew for about 1.5 years that there was something wrong. But every time she went to a healthcare provider, they were saying there was nothing wrong with her, and they kept sending her away. And finally, she had a doctor who finally tested her, and it turned out that she had stage 4 breast cancer. And she was only 35, so she wasn't even at the age where she could have had a mammogram and been tested. But she knew something was wrong. So for me, it was quite the eye-opener that if she was tested and found out 1.5 years before, it wouldn't have been stage 4.
If one can spend time to listen to the stories of where many of the men and women have come from and listen to the sort of childhood that they've had and the different experiences they've had, I think you pretty soon realize that if I'd had that childhood experience, I might have been in their shoes also. It's a very humanizing thing to actually work with people in prison.
I think doctors on the inside could use a little more compassion. I mean, I hadn't had a lot of, I had some issues inside.
The physician themselves might be actually quite frightened of you because they're human too, and they might have a stereotyped picture of what somebody who's been in prison is like. The doctor is probably maybe frightened of being abused or verbally abused, or they may be frightened of you asking for medication that they feel uncomfortable prescribing. So I think if you're aware that the doctor has fears too, that might help in the encounter.
Care providers in the community need to make us aware of all preventative care, like offer it to us. We may not remember what exactly treatments we were offered and refused inside prisons. You need to have conversations with us about how we were treated inside, so that you'll have a little more perspective on why we fear some treatments or the way we're touched or handled, and perhaps it has to do with male or female doctoring.
So the World Health Organization has got lots of wonderful statements about how healthcare in prisons should be equivalent to what people could get in the community. They call it through care, so that the people are outside of prison are getting a certain type of care in the community. They go into prison and they expect a continuity of care being translated into the prison, and then when they leave, that health care is continued on the outside.
If I had to share one thing with the public about who people are in prison, are the people who are wounded. You know, they're lost, and I think, you know, when they come out, as a community and as a society, I think we should be embracing them.
In the community, what can we do to engage people? Again, I think it's that engagement of people in the whole process of health. It is a matter of figuring out how to engage in that, and I think a community approach to it is really helpful, so that people don't feel so isolated and so alone.
Early detection can save your life. You know, today I'm 2.5 years clean from cancer.